You're welcome along to the Hagia Sophia Stadium in Athens ahead of the Republic of Ireland's clash with Greece tomorrow night at this very stadium. Gavin Cooney from the 42 is alongside me. How are you?
Good. I like the Late Late Show style vibe, like early 80s Gay Byrne Late Late Show vibe to this setup.
Well, I think this is what Keelty's going to go with, the shorts and t-shirt look. Just tone it down a little bit.
With a decent Mansford as well there, it has to be said.
We got to watch that now. I'll sit appropriately for the occasion. So the Republic of Ireland are just about to train down below in the next few minutes. We've just been listening to Stephen Kenny. The main news from a team news point of view is that absolutely everybody is available. I've just been watching Adam Ida, who was one of the doubts. Looks just fine down there. So really, no excuses.
I think that is the operative phrase for the game and for the whole build up to this, you know. No excuses. Stephen Kenny was saying that the objective was to come through the camp with nobody injured, and that has been achieved. And there's also no excuses, to be honest, on Kenny and his team from up above them, because, you know, everything that they've done over the last 2 weeks has been informed by the defeat in Armenia last year, where they opened a Nations League campaign that Kenny talked about aiming to win and didn't turn up. They were absolutely dreadful against Armenia. It was warm. It probably wasn't as warm as we were expecting it to. I think it was in maybe the high 20s at 5 o'clock kickoff, but Ireland just didn't turn up. Obviously, another issue was the fact that the ring rust, which you could hear some players' joints creaking, having been off for 5 weeks or so. So everything that's been done over the last month has been done to avoid that situation repeating. So they did their 4-day Bristol training camp, and then they did what is obviously a very expensive 10-day trip in a very fancy, swanky resort in Antalya in Turkey before flying on here. So yeah, no excuses, I think, is the operative phrase.
So, just watching the group get together down there, we see Evan Ferguson, who's obviously been the talk of the town once again. Stephen Kenny has, I think, more or less said he will start, that his form is just about done enough to say that he should start tomorrow's game. This has been built up as a decisive game for Stephen Kenny. In what way is it decisive? If they lose tomorrow night, does Stephen Kenny lose his job? Is that at stake?
No, I don't think so. I don't think it would go mid-campaign like that, but obviously his position would be very significantly weakened by that. It's very important in the context of the group. I mean, that's why we're all here, really. Gus Poyet was making that, he put it plainly in his press conference that it's a must-win for both sides, because if you're going to split the French and the Dutch, you need to come armed to that fight with as many points collected elsewhere. Now, actually, if you look at this solely, if you take a closer view of this game, a draw would actually be a good result for Ireland. You know, Greece are we're looking at two teams of basically the very same level here. There's only 3 places between them if you world ranking. So Ireland are away from home, and so you'd imagine a draw would not be a bad result at all. But in the context of the group, and also in the context of the broader arc of the manager, he has been backed. You know, he didn't necessarily have the results to necessarily guarantee that contract extension. I think that backing it was the right decision, but you have to ultimately start showing results. I mean, the overall target was always this long arc of building into the Euro 2024 campaign. Now we have been, ridden rock solid by the draw, etc. But I think there is a general expectation that in the 4th year under the manager, that Ireland should be good enough to come away and beat the 4th seeds.
He spoke again about a historic away victory, and Ireland have come close throughout his campaign. A lot of their better performances have been in those away games in Slovakia, in Serbia, in Portugal, over in Ukraine. But also all those games, there was a heroic failure element to them, and you sort of expected they'll kick on from there. And it's never quite happened. They've never been able to build that momentum. And the French defeat was, again, a heroic Irish defeat, where if Nathan Collins scores, it's a totally different outlook. You feel that performance gives them an opportunity again to just kick on, build momentum, a performance tomorrow night, a victory on Monday night, and actually maybe Kenny is in the clear and has a few months of peace. But there's been no sign over the 3 years that they've actually been able to back up performance on performance.
This is the really frustrating thing, that there was a sense of a kind of linear upward trajectory toward the end of the World Cup qualifying campaign. It was obviously dead on arrival really after the loss to Luxembourg, but then after they came close to beating Portugal and obviously lost that game, were dreadful then in the following game. But after that, things improved. They won away comfortably to Azerbaijan, and then that won away comfortably to Luxembourg. He did a press conference then with fans banging on the window singing his name, and the contract was signed and sealed a few weeks later. But then all that sense of upward trajectory ended in that defeat to Armenia, and there have been good parts and bad parts since. You can look at the performance in the draw away to Ukraine was very good. The performance in defeat to France was very good, I thought. A solid game plan. They executed pretty well. They decided, unfortunately, but yet another goal from outside the box. But in the middle, like, just these kind of bizarre brain melts, like giving goals away against Latvia and against Armenia. So there's never been that sense of momentum. And, if you're going to look at the positive side of this game, this is an opportunity to get that momentum. Like, I mean, if Ireland could win here in Athens tomorrow night, which I don't think they will, and it's going to be very difficult for them, and then obviously would be Gibraltar on Monday, then you're flying into September, and my God, is there a bang of no great shakes off the Dutch. Like, it is heady. You get high off that stuff. I mean, they look so average at the moment. So then there's a real sense of momentum and a sense that we can actually kind of really dream and really feel invested in a campaign, because too many have been dead too early previously. But it's such a hinge game, this, isn't it? Like, it all hinges on the result has to be here, and so much will be defined by what happens here. A lot of people were reserving their praise from the French game because, okay, let's see what they can do then against Greece. So they kind of didn't get all the praise they deserve for that, but then it all hinges on here tomorrow night.
One of the issues for Kenny is that at times the football also hasn't been to the standard that he had spoken about before he got the job, and even still the way he talks about it, that there have been periods in games where Ireland have just been so flat, where not even resorting to long ball, where they've just looked totally clueless when the ball would come to Malumbi or to Cullen. There'd be no out ball. It felt as though they'd no real threat in attack. This is the sort of game tomorrow where he probably has a decision to make that traditionally away from home against an even ranked side, Ireland would try the smash and grab. But is there an opportunity, and do you get the sense from him that he will throw in a curveball and a Mikey Johnson or someone that really sets the tone from the start, that we're not just coming here for the traditional 1-1 draw away from home that just prolongs the pain and pushes everything back 3 months, that actually he might set up his team to come here and come on the attack?
It will definitely be less of a containment job than the French game. Stephen Kenny has said that it will be a different approach. Gus Poyet had said it would be a different approach from Ireland. But at the same time, I think you have to, respect Greece. Like, I mean, they are a possession-based team, as Stephen Kenny says, and they're good. They've got players playing at a good level. Like, they've the top scorer in the Dutch Eredivisie, and he's not going to play. He'll probably be on the bench. So you have to kind of respect that. And Stephen Kenny did also talk about, with two systems. Like, there's a 3-4-3 and a 3-5-2. 3-4-3 Ireland set up. They have more of the ball there, more control of games. 3-5-2, that allows them to counter a little bit quicker. So I would expect, based off what he's been saying this week, that they will go with the latter. They'll have more of the ball than they had against France, but I would actually kind of anticipate that Greece would have more possession than Ireland tomorrow night. But that would suit Ireland. Like, I mean, this is the funny thing. Like, Ireland are definitely playing better football under this manner than previously. But the way the games have gone, we've always looked at our best in the games where we're counter-attacking. And that was most obvious against the French. It was most obvious away to Portugal in the World Cup campaign. So that might suit us. So there's a very compelling case for Johnston just because he's more match sharp than anyone else. He played all of Victoria Guimarães in the last 9 games right up until the second last week of May, where championship players have been kicking their heels for 39 days at this point. But it's just hard. It's hard to see where he fits into a 3-5-2. He could maybe play off Ferguson, but then maybe is he a little bit too central and you're missing him from out wide. There is, unfortunately for Mikey Johnson at the moment, a bang a super sub off him. Like, he made such an impact against Latvia, made a decent impact against France as well. So my prediction, and these predictions have been usually wrong in your show, is that Mikey Johnson will be on the bench.
Stephen Kenny, because of the makeup of his squad, can't just rest all of the guys who mightn't be match fit and match sharp. He's going to have to select quite a few of them. Like, one of the big decisions, it might be quite indicative of what his thinking is around Darragh O'Shea, who hasn't played since the French game at all, but a player that Kenny loves and trusts. But is there enough in that in that camp in Bristol, in the time in Turkey, for him to get that sharpness you need for a game like this? Or does he go with Darragh Lenihan and probably a vastly more inexperienced player, albeit at club level far more experienced? So that's like, even that is a difficult decision, and one that could come back to haunt him if he gets it wrong.
Yeah, I suppose he's paid a lot of money to make these big decisions. O'Shea obviously had the chance when this Portugal camp to prove that he's match fit, but his situation is more significant than the others because he hasn't actually played since March. I think the France game might actually have been his last game, so he's obviously fit to play and fit to be in the squad. As to how match sharp he is, you don't know. And Lenihan played in the season postscript into the playoff semi-finals at Middlesbrough. So if he does, we will see how important match sharpness is. when the team is picked. I mean, that was the issue in Armenia. So you'd imagine if all of the preparation going into this was based off what went wrong, then you'd imagine the team selection will be informed by that as well. And like you say, he's no option. Like John Egan hasn't played in nearly 40 days. He will play. Josh Cullen the same. Jason Malumbi the same. Callum O'Dowd the same. There he has a bit of an option. Like Darragh Lennon hasn't played very often for Ireland, but did very well, I thought, against Ukraine and Poland last June. So yeah, I think under normal terms, all things being equal, O'Shea would definitely be starting ahead of Lenihan, but the circumstances of this would make you think that maybe Lenihan is just ahead of him.
You've been acclimatising as well. Very important that you spent those few days in Turkey to acclimatise for this. Having just flown in from Dublin, I can tell you it's actually warmer in Dublin than it is here in Athens this afternoon. So it's not what they thought maybe when the draw was first made, up on 35, 40 degrees. The expectation is it might get towards 30, but certainly it's not stifling heat or anywhere near it in Athens. And we're at what at the moment? So we're at 8 o'clock. We're still going to be a couple of hours away from kick-off this time tomorrow. It's not going to be an issue.
Yeah, it goes back to the no excuses bit at the top. I mean, it's kind of just Stephen Kenny's luck that he gets a warm weather training camp when he could have had it if he just stayed at home. It was warmer and more humid in Antalya, but that was the thought process as well. Let's throw them into a pressure cooker in terms of heat, and then when they take to the pitch in Athens, they'll find it actually this isn't as bad as what we've been training in. Conditions it will be warm, but it shouldn't be anything that affects how Ireland want to play tomorrow night. As you say, 9:45 p.m. kickoff. And the other element to this is, like, you're coming away from home, you'd imagine it might be a hostile atmosphere. Seemingly not. Like, this is a gorgeous stadium, like AEK Athens Stadium. It's brand new. This might be its first competitive action. But apparently there's only about 9,000 or 10,000 fans here because the €20 tickets were snapped up, but the €40 tickets are a hard sell. Gus Poyet has used every media engagement he has to urge people to come to the stadium. It's going to be 3,000 Irish fans, so if a crowd is about a third Irish, home advantage in terms of an atmosphere, that isn't going to count for anything for Greece.
Yeah, it is bizarre because my taxi driver on the way out was telling me how special he's an AEK. So AEK Athens play their club games here, and he's an AEK supporter and was like, the noise in that stadium when it's full, it's going to be incredible tomorrow night, you're going to love it. And then you walk out and you see the surroundings, and it's just a beautiful stadium. It's the sort of stadium you'd love to have one of these sort of perfect size as a second stadium in Dublin as well. But there's obviously huge issues going on in Greek football that for a game of this importance that they're looking at only 10,000. And Stephen Kenny was getting information, it seems, that may have been incorrect, because he was talking about the hostile atmosphere and it being a sellout crowd, and was a bit shocked to discover that that's not going to be the case. So again, things just falling into place potentially, and a little bit of luck for Stephen Kenny that's been lacking at times, because if it is just 10,000 and 3,000 of them are Irish, I suspect the Irish will be making a bit more noise. Exactly,
and yet again we go back to how you perfectly framed it at the top, is just no excuses. I think if any manager is due a bit of luck, I feel Stephen Kenny is due it. Poyet was talking in his press conference as to how obviously there was this fantastic connection between the Greek team and its supporters after they won Euro 2004, which, to be honest, if Ireland went and won the bloody Euros, I feel we'd all be thinking pretty well of the team. But he said, obviously, they haven't qualified for anything since the 2014 World Cup, so that link has been severed, and Poyet has acknowledged that Greece need to win games to bring people back into the stadium. Let's hope they don't start tomorrow night, obviously. But yeah, it will be warm, but it won't be stifling. The atmosphere will not be hostile. Ireland have everyone fit. They've done all they can really to mitigate against the 39-day layoff of the championship players. So again, no excuses.
So what about the Greeks then and their quality? They're inconsistent. You look in the last year, they've been beaten by Cyprus, but at home Spain are the only team to beat them in their last 16 games. They are just Ireland wearing a different jersey in many ways, and probably have the same debates, I'm sure, about style of football. Even though it won them the European Championship, I'd say it was still from months. Did we win it properly? Yeah. Should we throw those medals in the bin and play better? Like Europe, we disgusted Europe with our style of football. We should be ashamed of ourselves at the way we won those European Championships. Or maybe that wasn't how their conversation went. It should have been. So Gus Poyet, who you mentioned there a few times, is their manager, and their players, we know some of them. So Kostas Tsimikas will be the most famous of them, backup left back at Liverpool. George Baldock's an interesting one. He was in for the press conference. Sheffield United teammate, in on the granny rule. How dare they do such a thing? Teammate of John Egan. The rest of their players, you could look at them and see clubs like Benfica, and you mentioned top scorer in the Eredivisie, and think like there's a depth of talent there that Ireland don't have. But then you do think, you look at world football, like the championship probably isn't far off the level. It's just actually the experience of European football that a lot of these Greek players have, that a lot of these Irish players are missing out on.
Yeah, totally. I mean, again, like the teams are so evenly matched. I mean, the standout players that we know from Liverpool is obviously Tsimikas and Bulldog, then the right back. I mean, their main attacking thrust comes from the fullback, so they'll be pushed right up. They'll bomb on. And then the guy to really look out for, obviously we know Giacomakis, the striker from Celtic. Not guaranteed that he'll start. It seems like maybe Pavlidis of AZ Alkmaar will be preferred. They play in a kind of a standard 4-3-3, so Ireland have to kind of mind those gaps between particularly like left-sided and right-sided centre-back and the wing-back outside them. But the danger man, if you're going to pick one danger man, is the captain, Bakasetas. He plays as one of the eights, and he can score from distance, so his strength marries ominously with our bizarre weakness. It would be a bit crass if Ireland turn up to Athens and show off an Achilles heel, as they have to address that. But there are weaknesses as well. Okay, Vlachodimos is the goalkeeper. He's at Benfica. He's pretty good. But like Arsenal fans will remember Mavropanos, kind of the centre back. He's really not very good. Like he will probably play tomorrow night up against Evan Ferguson. So there are strengths obviously there, but there are weaknesses too. So they're just so evenly matched.
Part of me was thinking when the question came up about Evan Ferguson that having had all this time together, is there any possibility that Stephen Kenny has looked at Evan Ferguson and thought, you are going to save my bacon. I am going to build my team around you. So yeah, I'll keep the three at the back. Yeah, I'll keep the wing backs. But my entire decision as to who those other two players alongside you are going to be based on what brings the best out of you. That is forefront of his mind when he's picking his team. And it should be, shouldn't it?
100%. He does seem like he will be a reliable source of goals, and ultimately, not to sound like Martin O'Neill, but that is what Ireland have lacked for years. When O'Neill talked about, I'm missing I wish Robbie Keane was younger, etc., it always read like a kind of a lame excuse because they weren't creating chances for anyone to miss. In fairness, Stephen Kenny has had Ireland creating chances. They just haven't been decisive enough in key moments. You're thinking like big chances missed. Adam Ida home to Portugal. Okay, there was a big chance missed away to Portugal as well, but I think was it Aaron Connolly, and obviously Troy Parrott away to Scotland. So Ireland just haven't been decisive enough in those key moments, and they've never lost a competitive game under Kenny by more than a goal. So it has been games of narrow margins. Now, why do the narrow margins always swing against Ireland? It's because they haven't been ruthless in the box. Like, it's a pretty simple formula, really, and it does seem like Ferguson can beat that player for Ireland. And he talks like, he was always going to play senior football for Ireland. He was always earmarked for it. I think everyone is very pleasantly surprised that he's ready already, both at Brighton and obviously here with Ireland. So it is in terms of the gifts that Ireland have been given in this qualifying campaign, there haven't been many. The fixtures went against them, God knows the opponents went against them, but the fact that Ferguson is ready to lead the line already is a massive plus.
We'll analyse this to death over the weekend and post Gibraltar, and I'll feel very free in being critical of the players. I'm less free when they're standing 50 feet away, I find, of saying anything negative about any of them. As it turns out, my voice carries across the entire stadium. Great bunch of lads.
I love their work.
Love what they're doing. They're down there just warming up at the moment. We're going to go down pitch side and have a proper look and see is there any little inkling as to what the team selection is going to be, but it does look as though at the moment as though everybody is out there and everybody is perfectly fine to train. Give us your prediction, and you're not allowed to give the traditional 1-1 away from home.
And I prefer not to speak. I mean, Athens is kind of the city in which like the ancient endures, so I feel like for that reason alone it should be a 1-1 draw.
All right, you've got your I feel as though you have three ancient Greek opening paragraphs ready for tomorrow night, regardless of what happens. Am I correct? I bloody knew it. All right, Gav, we shall talk to you over the weekend.